Hello again, and thank you for taking a moment with Mel. Today, we are going to talk about emotional generational wealth. Usually, when people talk about generational wealth, they're talking about it from a financial standpoint. And yes, financial wealth is important, and to have that pass from generation to generation is very important. But another thing that we need to make sure is that we have emotional generational wealth. Even if you make gains in your family from a financial standpoint, if you don't have emotional wealth, what ends up happening is within that generation or even soon after, you're not going to have the financial wealth. Emotional intelligence has to do with self regulation, self awareness, empathy, motivation, and also social skills. Emotional generational wealth is created and maintained by us, first of all, not only acknowledging but also treating not only pregnancy but the first 3 years of life as sacred. The human brain is the most complex entity in the universe. At times, during the first year of life, connections are being made at 3 billion per second. Anything that affects mom's environment and also mom's ability to have stability also affects the fetus. Mom's emotional security also ensures that the fetus's electrical wiring and also the chemical supplies to their brain is intact and happens the way that it should. Anytime that doesn't happen, not only are we potentially going to have emotional issues in our children and sometimes even going into adulthood, but we're also going to have physical issues that are going to show up in the children going also into adulthood. The fetus absorbs mom's feelings and everything that is going on in mom's environment. The second thing that we have to do is we have to connect and spend time with the children as much as possible, starting from when they're in our bellies all the way into their young childhood, going into young adulthood and forward. As early as 16 weeks, the babies can hear in our stomachs. Now, when I was younger, I knew that we needed to read to the children when they were in our bellies, but I didn't realize that we have had information come to us that it's actually 16 weeks that they can start to hear. So we need to start reading to them when they're in our belly. We also can start playing music when they're in our belly. Once they come out, I know that we are going to be talking to them. We are going to be making sure that we have eye contact with them. We're going to just be speaking to them. And then when they start to babble, we are going to be talking back to them. And then when they can talk to us and we can really communicate and understand each other, we want to listen to everything that they want to say. Once they start going to school, we want to hear about how their day was. We want them to be able to explore all the gamut of their emotions with us. They need to be able to be sad with us. They need to be able to be mad with us sometimes. It's not only happiness that we need to see from them. We need to create the environment where they can explore all of their emotions with us. What is a more safe environment for a child to be able to learn how to interact with their environment, learn how to interact with society, than with people that love them and want the best for them? Sometimes when we have events that happen either early in childhood, actually even going back to when mom was carrying us, if mom has significant things that are going on that are stressful, causing anxiety, maybe in a situation where things are out of control that are affecting her from a emotional standpoint, maybe the baby themselves is feeling that in the womb and also responding to it. Because remember, everything that mom feels, the baby feels. Sometimes when we have things that happen to young children, what ends up happening is as they grow, their chronological age does not equal their emotional age. So chronological maturity and emotional maturity aren't usually separated, but sometimes when you have a lot that goes on in your household, in your environment from a trauma standpoint, those two things are not online with what they should be, and sometimes that goes even into adulthood. The other day I was watching Netflix and they had a special about Hurricane Katrina, and it just talked about everything that was going on in the community at that time, the stress, the anxiety. You have some of the areas that were most impacted from a not only an economic standpoint but from a housing standpoint. There were already areas where there was a lot going on related to food insecurity, housing insecurity. So on top of trauma that was already there, if you know anything about what happened in that time 20 years ago, you had a lot of people that experienced a mass trauma at the same time. So you had some people that not only were stuck in their homes for a significant amount of time, didn't have food. Let's say if you delivered a baby at that time, or if you had a baby at that time, whatever stress mom was under at that time, that baby was under. Mom was not connecting as much as she would normally connect from an eye contact standpoint. That stress level would have been felt by the child. Now, in addition to that, you had some people that had to leave the area. So now they're in a different area. They don't have their regular support system with them. You have some people that had to go, to North Carolina, Alabama, Texas, Florida. And you have not only all of them being impacted at the same time with a lot of different types of insecurities, you also have them not being able to have their regular support systems that they used to have. Some people, for a significant amount of time, didn't even know if their family members were alive. So imagine either being pregnant at that time with all of those stress hormones hitting you, or having a baby where you don't even know whether you're going to be able to continue to feed yourself so that the baby can be fed. There was so much stress that went along with that traumatic event, and it impacted people that were already traumatized by a lot of different things also. If for any reason, let's say you had significant events that happened when you were younger, or sometimes it could even have significant events that happen as you are older. But if chronological age does not necessarily equal emotional age. And what we need to do is, especially for our children, and if we are to pass on that emotional generational wealth, a lot of us that had not considered therapy in the past, counseling in the past, sometimes support groups where you can have people that have gone through similar events that are able to express themselves and just know that they're not alone. The thing about it is that if you, prior to trying to become a partner or even trying to become a parent, if you don't deal with the traumas that you have had in the past, it is significantly going to impact your ability to be a good partner and your ability to be a good parent. And sometimes some of the frustrations that we have in relationships have to do with people not dealing with or recognizing that they have had significant trauma. Sometimes our brains block things out, and you're behaving a certain way, you're responding a certain way, but not necessarily realizing that from a chronological age, you're not expressing the same amount of emotional maturity that you should from a chronological standpoint. Some of us that struggle with some generational issues from an emotional standpoint, we have to go back and we have to think about what was our pregnancy story. Maybe you still have your mom that you can ask what your pregnancy story was. What was she going through when she was pregnant? If mom is not available, maybe you have an aunt or somebody that can give you information about what might have been going on in the family at that time. If you're struggling with addiction, if you're struggling with behavioral health issues, even some of our chronic health problems, sometimes if you go back and learn your pregnancy story, or if you have a child that is dealing with, let's say, ADHD or maybe anger or depression, think back about what was going on in your life at the time that you were pregnant. Think back at what was going on in that early, let's say, 1 to 3. Some of you that know that my father was murdered when 1 week before my 3rd birthday. My family, on both sides of my family, significantly were impacted by that event. And we're talking about the fact that our primary support system, which that would have been each other, everybody was affected at the same time. And if you think about what we were talking about related to Hurricane Katrina, you have an entire community, families that would have all been affected at the same time, and they would have been their own support system. So we have to think about what was going on at the time when we first came into the world, because that significantly impacts some of the emotional work that we have to do in order to pass on that positive emotional wealth to the next generation. I was saying to my nieces the other day that the information that we know now from, like, let's say when they were in bellies and when they were born, we know so much more information than now than we did then. And the point of generational wealth, the point of going from generation to generation and doing better, is we want to do better. We want to share the information. And if you do have to go back and ask people about your, what was going on in your mom's life when you were pregnant, when she was pregnant, it's not a matter of judging anybody. It's a matter of information. Because sometimes when we're struggling with things, we think that it's us. We think that it's a behavior issue that we have. Oh, I'm a bad child, or I'm a bad person. You're not. A lot of people that I have seen, stories that I watch from a documentary standpoint, you begin to realize what was going on in that environment. Screaming, yelling. Sometimes you have moms that are depressed. Postpartum depression is a big deal. You wouldn't have been able to have that eye contact with the child. You would have taken care of their basic needs, their physical needs, but because, let's say, if I had postpartum depression, I would have been struggling myself. So I would have made sure that your physical needs were met. But in regards to holding you and looking in your eyes as much as I should and having that bonding time, sometimes that didn't happen. And sometimes as the child gets older, remember, we're talking about the electrical wiring, we're talking about the chemicals that are being released. So, and remember what I said about 3 billion connections per second. So it's really important for some of us to ask our family members about what was going on at the time that mom was pregnant with me. Because once we get to the point where we stop blaming and we start trying to find out what was going on, try to support families as much as possible. Remember, we not only have to be buffers, we have to be support systems. Some of us will not go past a certain amount of generational emotional maturity if we don't look backwards in order to provide the information, the support to the next generation so that we can go higher and higher. There's no way that we are going to make progress, that we are going to grow if we don't learn from the past and apply new things for our next generation. Remember, everything that's going on when the baby is in the womb, and especially for those 1 to 3 years, they are absorbing and they are recording. So remember the 2 things that we have to do and the 1 thing we might have to do. One, that sacred time is pregnancy and also the first 3 years. Two, we have to spend as much time with our young people as possible. We have to make sure that they are able to express all of the different emotions that they are going to have, because it's going to happen, in a safe environment, so that we can help them to understand their feelings, and we can help them to identify and how to manage things better. So that's important, that connectedness. And just being in a house with somebody does not mean that you're connected with them. You have to make time and intentionally ask them questions. And y'all know, especially when they get into those teenage years, you almost have to draw things out of them, but it's worth it. Last thing, we have to figure out what were our own pregnancy stories, what was going on with us when we were pregnant with our children, because that might give us some clues about what's going on from a behavioral standpoint. And as adults, if we don't think about our past and then also put in place mechanisms to help us to heal from past traumas, it is going to impact not only our ability to be a good partner, it is going to impact our ability to be a good parent. So, in order for you to pass on amazing, emotional, generational wealth, those are the things that we need to do. It's not only about financial generational wealth, it is also about emotional generational wealth.